Hi, very good morning. It's Mark here, just after 8 a.m. Eastern US session now underway, going into the afternoon portion of the European session. It's 12 midday GMT. Let's have a look how our major instruments are performing at the start of the of this new week, new trading day. In US, should I say, new trading day. Asian session completed and European session midway through. US dollar index, always our starting point. Here's a sell-off. You can see that to start the week, US dollar being sold off from an gap down at the end of last week, and then open at 99.69, support at 99.32, trading within this range. US dollar being sold off to start the week. Last week, US dollar did strengthen slightly over the week. So let's see if that can be maintained, and if once the US session is underway now, if US dollar selling continues, because often we see a change, reversal between the Asian European session and the US session. So here I'm looking at, could the US bounce back now that the US session underway, come up and test resistance at 99.74 is the resistance level, or sellers continuing and test the break below the 99.32 level. Let's have a look at S&P. Bear in mind that Wall Street opens up in an hour and a half, so this is pre-market trading. A little bit of a gap down to start the week. There's the strong run that the S&P has had. Gap down to start the week after last week's close at 5,705. Opened 5,680, below that 5,700. Bit of a sell-off now continuing, but we'll see more when Wall Street opens up. And like I said, that is an hour and a half from now. Let's have a look at gold. Gold sold off last week. We saw that we've had 2 weeks of gold selling off. But interesting, I put in this Fibonacci retracement tool on the daily, measuring the previous uptrend from 2,952 all the way up to the record high 3,500. Here is the retracement down, and you can see where it got held up. It got held up at the 50% retracement level, which is 3,226. Bounced off that level, which is why I like using and putting in the fib retracement tool to give us these levels to work off. Buyers stepped in at these levels, and so far today, already a $70 move higher from 3,240, 3,315 is resistance. Buyers will look to break higher than current resistance and up to the 3,353 level. If I zoom in on the hourly, you'll see struggling at that level for now. Been testing this resistance, but buyers will be looking for a push higher. Alternatively, sellers maybe look for a push lower. Maybe the inverse relationship, if the US dollar does start to strengthen during the US session, that could be the push down we're looking for. And this is, remember, the inverse relationship we've seen to start with, weak US dollar so far to start today, and you're seeing gold strengthen. That's the traditional relationship between the two playing out. Let's have a look at oil. Very strong sell-off in oil last week. We've seen that on all time frames. That's the hourly. Let me just give you an overview. On the daily, here's the strong sell-off that we have seen. A big gap down to start this week, actually, from 61.48 close all the way down to 58.85. Buyers have stepped in. There has been a bounce of this very low support area, now sitting at $60.50. Buyers will certainly be looking to test today's resistance, 60.77, to get higher, to get to the 61.62 level. However, overall, bias is down. Well, bias is up today, but overall, certainly down, trend is down, EMA is pointing lower, and all the fundamentals and technicals looking for a continued sell-off in oil. We'll see how that plays out today. And crypto, let's have a look at Bitcoin, which had a good week last week. There's last week all the way up to almost 98,000. Had a strong week. Bear in mind, Bitcoin, a real 24/7 market. There is trading over the weekend. Came down Saturday, came down yesterday. Today has tested lower, but kind of sitting where it closed off yesterday at that 94,300. Buyers will be looking to break above this 95,000, get back to last week's highs in the high 90s, back up to 98 or higher. Sellers will want to continue what they did over the weekend and selling. Look to break below this 93,700. Look for support at 92,000 or lower. Good trading, and I will see you at end of day session.